Case 1. Alph Lukau. The funeral procession moves slowly through the streets of Johannesburg, South Africa. Inside the ornate wooden coffin lies what appears to be a lifeless body, surrounded by weeping family members dressed in black. The grieving widow clutches a handkerchief, her shoulders shaking with sobs as mourners fill the sanctuary of Alleluia Ministries International. Television cameras capture every moment as Pastor Alph Lukau prepares to perform what he claims will be the ultimate demonstration of divine power. Lukau approaches the coffin with theatrical confidence, his expensive suit gleaming under the studio lights. The crowd holds its breath as he places his hands on the supposedly dead man and begins praying with dramatic intensity. "Rise up! Rise up!" he commands, his voice echoing through the packed church. The cameras zoom in as the corpse suddenly begins to move, sitting up in the coffin to gasps of amazement from the congregation. The footage goes viral within hours. News outlets across Africa broadcast the miracle resurrection, as Lukau claims God has used him to bring a man back from the dead. Millions of viewers watch in awe as the resurrected man stumbles out of the coffin, appearing dazed and disoriented. Lukau's followers hail it as proof of his divine anointing, and donations pour into his ministry from believers convinced they have witnessed the impossible. But 3 days later, the dead man walked into a television studio very much alive, shattering the illusion completely. Brighton Moyo, a 24-year-old Zimbabwean man, sat across from investigative journalists and calmly explained how Lukau's ministry had hired him to play the role of a corpse. He revealed that he had been paid to lie motionless in the coffin, then pretend to come back to life during the staged service. The grieving family members were also actors, paid to perform their emotional reactions for the cameras. Moyo's confession exposed every detail of the elaborate hoax. He described how Lukau's staff had coached him on exactly how to behave when rising from the death, instructing him to appear confused and disoriented to make the performance more believable. The ministry had even provided fake identification documents to support the resurrection story, creating a completely fabricated death certificate for a man who had never actually died. The revelation triggered a massive scandal across South Africa's religious community. Government officials launched investigations into Lukau's ministry practices, while medical professionals condemned the dangerous deception that could convince desperate people to avoid legitimate health care. The South African Broadcasting Corporation banned the miracle footage from their networks, and regulatory authorities began scrutinizing Lukau's tax-exempt status. The coffin that had contained Moyo's living body became a symbol of everything wrong with modern religious fraud, a sophisticated theatrical production designed to exploit people's deepest spiritual beliefs for financial gain. And this was just the beginning of what we discovered about the world's most brazen religious fraudsters. Welcome to Savage Case Files, where we expose the most shocking betrayals of trust in modern society. What you just witnessed with Alph Lukau's resurrection hoax represents the tip of an iceberg that spans continents and destroys millions of lives. These aren't just simple con artists operating from back alleys. These are sophisticated fraudsters who build multi-million-dollar empires by weaponizing faith itself. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because the 15 cases we're about to reveal will show you exactly how these spiritual predators operate, how they get caught, and why their victims continue to defend them even after the truth is exposed. Case 2. Hinn. Hinn transformed religious healing into the greatest show on earth, filling stadiums across 6 continents with desperate believers seeking supernatural cures. His miracle crusades drew crowds of up to 70,000 people, with millions more watching his televised services where wheelchairs were supposedly emptied and terminal illnesses vanished through his healing touch. Hinn's theatrical performances were masterfully orchestrated spectacles. He would stride across massive stages in flowing white suits, dramatically waving his jacket to heal audience members who would collapse en masse. The sight of thousands of people falling backward simultaneously created an atmosphere of supernatural power that convinced viewers they were witnessing divine intervention. But investigative journalists discovered the careful preparation behind these miraculous scenes. Hinn's staff conducted extensive pre-screening of audience members hours before each service, selecting participants based on conditions that could appear dramatically improved through adrenaline and suggestion. People with chronic pain, depression, or mobility issues were positioned strategically, while those with verifiable medical conditions like cancer or diabetes were quietly turned away. Hidden camera investigations revealed the shocking truth about Hinn's luxury lifestyle, funded by donations from impoverished followers. While promising financial breakthroughs to supporters, Hinn was purchasing multi-million-dollar oceanfront mansions, staying in $3,000 per night hotel suites, and traveling exclusively on private jets. His ministry operated like a personal enrichment scheme, disguised as charitable work. Medical follow-up studies of Hinn's claimed healings consistently found no evidence of genuine supernatural cures. Patients who appeared healed during his crusades often experienced return of symptoms within days, while others had never actually suffered from the conditions Hinn claimed to cure. The investigations revealed that his healing ministry was essentially elaborate theater designed to generate maximum emotional impact and donation revenue. Case 3. Peter Popoff. Peter Popoff built his ministry on an seemingly impossible ability. God would reveal specific details about audience members' lives, medical conditions, and personal struggles directly to him during live television broadcasts. Night after night, Popoff would call out people's names, addresses, and intimate health information with startling accuracy, convincing millions that he possessed genuine prophetic gifts. "There's a Margaret Johnson in Section B," Popoff would announce to gasps from the crowd. "You live on Oak Street? You have diabetes, and your mother died of heart disease last year." When the amazed Margaret would stand up, confirming every detail, audiences were convinced they were witnessing divine revelation in real time. But magician James Randi suspected deception and applied scientific investigation to Popoff's performances. Using radio frequency scanners, Randi discovered that Popoff was wearing a tiny wireless earpiece virtually invisible to television cameras. His wife Elizabeth was seated in a back room, reading personal information that audience members had written on prayer cards before the service, then transmitting the details directly into her husband's ear. The exposé came during a live television broadcast when Randi played recordings of Elizabeth Popoff's transmissions. Viewers heard her voice feeding information to her husband. "Hello, Petey, can you hear me? If you can't, you're in trouble. Say hello to me." The recordings captured her reading prayer card details and coaching him on what to say to create maximum emotional impact. The revelation instantly destroyed Popoff's credibility and triggered the collapse of his ministry empire. Within months, his television show was canceled and donations dried up as followers realized they had been deceived by a simple electronic trick. The man who claimed divine communication was exposed as a fraud, using technology readily available at any electronics store. Case 4. Robert Tilton. Robert Tilton perfected the art of turning desperate prayers into personal profit through his Success and Life television program. He promised viewers that sending faith seeds, monetary donations accompanied by handwritten prayer requests, would result in miraculous financial breakthroughs and divine intervention in their lives. Tilton's fundraising letters contain specific instructions for maximizing supernatural returns. Sow a seed of $1,000 and watch God multiply it back as $100,000, he would promise. Write your prayer request with tears if necessary. God will see your faith and respond with overwhelming blessings. Millions of viewers sent their last dollars along with heartfelt prayers, describing their most desperate needs. But ABC's primetime live investigation in 1991 revealed the horrifying truth about what happened to those sacred prayer requests. Investigative reporters followed garbage trucks from Tilton's ministry headquarters, and discovered thousands of unopened prayer letters dumped in Oklahoma landfills. The envelopes had been sliced open just enough to remove checks and money orders before the letters themselves were discarded like trash. The footage of prayer requests rotting in landfills became one of the most damning exposés in television history. Cameras captured intimate letters from cancer patients begging for healing, unemployed fathers pleading for job opportunities, and elderly widows asking for enough money to pay rent, all thrown away after their donations were extracted. Tilton's response to the investigation only deepened the scandal. He claimed he had prayed over the letters before discarding them, as if divine intervention could occur through a garbage truck. His ministry's donor database revealed that people who sent larger donations received more aggressive fundraising letters, proving the operation was designed to extract maximum money from each contributor, regardless of their financial circumstances. The exposé triggered congressional investigations into televangelism fraud and destroyed Tilton's credibility permanently. His television empire collapsed as viewers realized their most sacred prayers had been literally treated as garbage after their money was removed. Case 5. T.B. Joshua. Chementope Balagoon, Joshua built one of Africa's most influential religious empires from his synagogue Church of All Nations in Lagos, Nigeria. His Emmanuel TV broadcasts reached millions across 6 continents, showing spectacular healings and prophecies that convinced viewers they were witnessing genuine supernatural power. World leaders and celebrities made pilgrimages to his compound, seeking his prophetic insights and miraculous interventions. Joshua's television programs featured dramatic footage of people being instantly cured of HIV, cancer, and paralysis through his touch. Viewers watched in amazement as blind people regained sight, wheelchair-bound patients walked again, and tumors supposedly vanished during live broadcasts. His prophecies about international disasters and political events seemed to come true with startling accuracy, further cementing his reputation as a genuine prophet. But a comprehensive BBC investigation shattered the carefully constructed illusion. The documentary team spent months interviewing former disciples and staff members who revealed the elaborate staging behind Joshua's miracle ministry. Insiders described how the church recruited actors to play sick people, coached them on their testimonies, and used sophisticated video editing to create impossible healing footage. Former disciples revealed how Joshua's prophecies were manufactured, using careful intelligence gathering and post-edit editing. His staff monitored international news constantly, then edited broadcasts to make it appear he had predicted events that occurred after filming. The accurate prophecies that convinced millions were actually created through careful manipulation of recorded content. The investigation uncovered video evidence showing Joshua instructing participants on exactly what to say during their healing testimonies. Hidden cameras captured staff members rehearsing miracle scenes multiple times until they achieved the desired dramatic effect. The supernatural healings that drew millions of viewers were revealed as carefully choreographed performances designed to maintain his prophetic reputation and generate massive donations. Case 6. Shepherd Bushiri. Shepherd Bushiri, known to his followers as Major One and the Man of God, built his enlightened Christian gathering into one of Southern Africa's largest religious movements through claims of supernatural abilities that defied physics itself. His most famous miracle involved walking in the air during church services, apparently levitating several feet above the ground while thousands of amazed followers watched in person, and millions more viewed the footage online. Bushiri's supernatural demonstrations went far beyond healing claims. He allegedly made people's body weight vanish instantly, caused money to materialize from thin air, and transported followers across vast distances through spiritual teleportation. His church broadcasts showed seemingly impossible phenomena that convinced desperate believers they were witnessing divine power operating through their prophet. Technical analysis of Bushiri's walking in the air miracle revealed sophisticated camera tricks and optical illusions. Video experts demonstrated how careful camera angles, strategic lighting, and post-production editing created the appearance of levitation when Bushiri was actually standing on hidden platforms or using concealed support wires. The miracle that launched his international reputation was exposed as basic movie magic. Former church insiders revealed the extensive network of paid actors and planted testimonies that sustained Bushiri's ministry. Staff members described how the church recruited desperate people, coached them on their healing stories, and positioned them strategically during services to create maximum emotional impact. The supernatural wealth transfers and instant healings were elaborate theatrical productions designed to extract donations from vulnerable believers. But Bushiri's empire collapsed when South African authorities filed serious criminal charges including money laundering, fraud, and theft. As investigators closed in on his financial crimes, Bushiri fled South Africa and returned to Malawi, where he remains a fugitive from justice. The prophet who claimed supernatural powers couldn't prevent his own ministry from crumbling under the weight of criminal investigation. Case 7. Walter Magaya. Walter Magaya transformed his prophetic healing and deliverance ministries into Zimbabwe's largest religious movement by making the most dangerous claims imaginable. He could cure HIV, cancer, and other terminal illnesses through supernatural intervention. His anointing water and herbal remedies were promoted as divine cures that could replace conventional medical treatment, convincing thousands of dying patients to abandon life-saving therapy. Magaya's healing crusades featured dramatic testimonies from people claiming complete recovery from terminal diseases through his ministry. HIV-positive patients declared themselves cured after drinking his blessed water, while cancer victims showed apparent medical documents confirming their supernatural healing. The testimonies were broadcast across Zimbabwe and neighboring countries, creating a pilgrimage of desperate patients seeking miracle cures. Medical authorities launched investigations after reports of patients dying after abandoning HIV medication and cancer treatment on Magaya's advice. Health officials discovered that many of the dramatic healing testimonies were fabricated using falsified medical records and paid actors posing as former patients. The miraculous recoveries that convinced thousands to risk their lives were elaborate deceptions designed to promote Magaya's dangerous products. Zimbabwe's Medicines Control Authority filed criminal charges against Magaya for making unsubstantiated medical claims and endangering public health. Investigators found that his herbal remedies contained no active ingredients capable of treating serious diseases, yet were marketed as guaranteed cures for conditions requiring immediate medical intervention. The legal action exposed how his ministry had prioritized profit over the lives of vulnerable patients. The scandal destroyed Magaya's credibility and triggered government warnings about the dangers of abandoning medical treatment for spiritual healing. Public health officials launched campaigns to counter the damage caused by his false promises, while families who lost loved ones to preventable deaths began speaking out about the devastating consequences of trusting Magaya's deadly deceptions. Case 8. Emmanuel Makandiwa. Emmanuel Makandiwa built his United Family International Church empire through spectacular transformation, miracles that appeared to defy biological reality. His services featured people experiencing instant weight loss, immediate debt cancellation, and supernatural body modifications that convinced audiences they were witnessing divine power reshaping physical reality in real time. Makandiwa's most viral moments involved dramatic before and after demonstrations, where severely overweight individuals would appear to lose massive amounts of weight within minutes during live services. The visual impact was undeniable, as apparently the same people returned to the stage looking dramatically thinner, creating powerful testimony about his supernatural abilities to transform bodies instantly. But leaked footage from former church staff revealed the elaborate deception behind these miraculous transformations. Investigative analysis showed that Makandiwa's ministry used different people for the before and after segments, carefully selecting individuals with similar facial features but dramatically different body types. The instant weight loss that amazed millions was actually achieved through simple substitution using look-alike actors. Video evidence emerged showing the props and staging equipment used to create these impossible transformations. Former staff members revealed how the church recruited people specifically for their physical resemblance to create convincing before and after scenarios. The supernatural body modifications that built Makandiwa's reputation were exposed as carefully orchestrated illusions using basic theatrical techniques. The revelation that Makandiwa's signature miracles were achieved through deception rather than divine power triggered widespread skepticism about his ministry's credibility. As more former insiders came forward with evidence of systematic fraud, his international reputation collapsed, and his supernatural transformation claims became symbols of religious deception rather than divine intervention. Case 9. Uebert Angel. Uebert Angel built his spirit embassy ministry around the most seductive promise in religious fraud: supernatural wealth transfer that could instantly transform followers from poverty to prosperity. His miracle money demonstrations showed cash appearing from thin air, bank accounts mysteriously increasing overnight, and debt disappearing through divine intervention during live church services. Angel's money materialization performances were masterfully executed theatrical productions. He would call followers on stage, pray over their financial situations, then dramatically reveal cash that had supposedly manifested through supernatural means. The visual impact of money appearing in previously empty hands convinced audiences they were witnessing genuine miracles that could transform their own financial circumstances. Former staff members leaked videos that exposed the sleight-of-hand techniques behind Angel's money miracles. The footage revealed how church assistants planted cash in strategic locations, used hidden compartments in clothing, and employed classic magic tricks to create the illusion of supernatural wealth manifestation. The divine financial interventions that drew millions of desperate followers were revealed as sophisticated stage magic. Leaked testimonies from planted church members revealed how Angel's ministry recruited actors to deliver rehearsed stories about receiving miraculous wealth transfers. These fake testimonies were strategically positioned throughout services to create emotional momentum and convince genuine attendees that supernatural prosperity was possible through Angel's ministry. The authentic financial desperation of real followers was exploited through elaborate theatrical deception. Investigation into Angel's international operations revealed how his money materialization claims were used to extract millions from vulnerable believers across multiple countries. While promising supernatural wealth to followers, Angel was building a personal empire of luxury properties and expensive vehicles, funded by donations from people who could barely afford basic necessities, creating a devastating irony that exposed the true nature of his prosperity gospel. Case 10. J. Israel S.R. J. Israel Sr. shocked the religious world when he became one of the first prominent healing ministers to publicly confess that his miraculous demonstrations were elaborate frauds designed to exploit desperate believers. For over a decade, Israel had operated one of South Africa's most successful healing ministries, drawing thousands to his crusades, where dramatic healings and supernatural interventions appeared to occur nightly. Israel's confession came during a devastating interview with investigative journalists where he methodically dismantled every aspect of his miracle ministry. He revealed how his organization recruited actors to pose as sick and disabled people, then coached them on delivering convincing testimonies about their supernatural healing experiences. The wheelchair-bound patients who walked again and the blind people who regained sight were carefully selected performers, paid to deceive genuine believers. The former evangelist described in chilling detail how his ministry targeted the most vulnerable members of society. He explained how his staff identified people facing terminal illnesses, financial ruin, or family crises, then crafted personalized miracle demonstrations, designed to extract maximum emotional impact and donation revenue. The healing crusades that brought hope to desperate families were revealed as calculated exploitation of human suffering. Israel's most damning revelation concerned the psychological manipulation techniques his ministry employed to maintain the illusion of supernatural power. He described how planted testimonies created emotional momentum that convinced genuine attendees they were witnessing real miracles, even when obvious staging was occurring. The authentic desperation of real believers was weaponized to sustain an empire built entirely on deception. His confession provided unprecedented insight into the mechanics of religious fraud from someone who had operated at the highest levels of the industry. Israel revealed how healing ministries shared techniques, traded actor networks, and coordinated their deceptions to avoid exposure while maximizing profit from vulnerable populations across multiple countries. Case 11. W.V. Grant. W.V. Grant perfected the art of tent revival fraud through his traveling healing crusades that promised miraculous interventions for physical disabilities and chronic illnesses. His signature demonstration involved dramatic leg lengthening miracles, where people with supposedly unequal leg lengths would experience instant supernatural correction through his healing touch, creating powerful visual evidence of divine intervention. Grant's leg-lengthening performances were masterfully executed deceptions that exploited basic anatomy and audience psychology. Hidden camera investigations revealed how he used simple manipulation techniques to create the illusion that one leg was shorter than the other, then dramatically healed the non-existent condition through supernatural prayer. The apparent miracle that convinced thousands was actually achieved through basic sleight of hand that any competent magician could replicate. Investigative footage captured Grant's staff pre-selecting audience members based on their susceptibility to suggestion and their potential value as dramatic testimonies. The apparently random selection of miracle recipients was actually a carefully orchestrated process designed to maximize emotional impact while minimizing the risk of exposure. People with genuine medical conditions that could be verified were quietly avoided in favor of participants whose healing couldn't be medically disproven. The tent revival circuit that sustained Grant's ministry was exposed as a sophisticated network of traveling fraud operations. Former staff members revealed how healing evangelists shared information about effective deception techniques, traded contact lists of vulnerable followers, and coordinated their schedules to avoid saturating the same geographic markets with competing miracle claims. Grant's eventual exposure damaged the credibility of the entire tent revival movement and triggered increased scrutiny of traveling healing ministries. His techniques became case studies in religious fraud investigation, helping authorities identify similar deception patterns in other operations that targeted rural and economically disadvantaged communities across America. Case 12. Ernest Angley. Ernest Angley built one of America's longest-running healing fraud operations through his Grace Cathedral ministry and weekly television broadcasts that spanned over 5 decades. His healing crusades featured dramatic demonstrations where tumors allegedly disappeared, cancer patients claimed instant recovery, and people with various disabilities experienced apparent supernatural intervention through his aggressive laying on of hands technique. Angley's television healing services were characterized by his violent approach to spiritual intervention, where he would strike participants forcefully on the forehead while commanding diseases to leave their bodies. The dramatic physical impact of his healing method created memorable television moments that convinced viewers they were witnessing genuine supernatural power rather than theatrical performance designed for maximum visual effect. But decades of investigative scrutiny revealed the systematic deception behind Angley's healing ministry. Former staff members described how the church recruited actors and coached genuine participants on delivering convincing testimonies about their healing experiences. The supernatural recoveries that sustained his television ministry for generations were exposed as carefully orchestrated performances that exploited the desperation of chronically ill viewers. Medical follow-up investigations of Angley's claimed healings consistently found no evidence of genuine supernatural intervention. Patients who appeared healed during his television broadcasts often experienced immediate return of symptoms, while others had never actually suffered from the conditions Angley claimed to cure. The decades-long deception that built his religious empire was sustained through careful avoidance of verifiable medical conditions. The exposure of Angley's fraud techniques provided crucial evidence about how religious deception could operate successfully for generations without detection. His ministry became a case study in the psychological factors that allow obvious fraud to continue unchallenged when it exploits people's desperate need for hope and supernatural intervention. Case 13. Jim Whittington. Jim Whittington operated his healing ministry as a sophisticated money laundering operation disguised as charitable religious work. While promising miraculous healing and financial breakthroughs to desperate followers, Whittington was systematically diverting donations intended for ministry operations into personal investment accounts and luxury purchases that had no connection to his supposed spiritual mission. Whittington's healing demonstrations were deliberately designed to generate maximum emotional impact and donation revenue from audiences who believed they were supporting genuine miracle ministry. His crusades featured staged healings and fabricated testimonies that created the illusion of supernatural power, while serving primarily as fundraising events for his personal enrichment scheme. Financial investigators discovered that Whittington had diverted over $2.3 million in ministry donations into personal accounts, using the money to purchase luxury vehicles, vacation properties, and high-end electronics, while his followers struggled with poverty and medical bills. The donations given by desperate believers seeking healing were systematically stolen to fund a lifestyle that contradicted every principle his ministry claimed to represent. Federal fraud investigations revealed how Whittington's organization filed false charity documentation and created fictitious ministry programs to justify the misappropriation of donated funds. The healing crusades that appeared to be focused on spiritual intervention were actually sophisticated cover operations for large-scale financial fraud that exploited the tax-exempt status of religious organizations. Whittington's conviction and imprisonment sent shockwaves through the religious community and triggered increased oversight of ministry financial operations. His case became a landmark example of how healing fraud and financial crimes often operate together, with fabricated miracles serving as cover for systematic theft from vulnerable believers. Case 14. Lazarus Muoka. Lazarus Muoka transformed his Lord's chosen charismatic revival ministries into Nigeria's most theatrical religious production through meticulously scripted miracle performances that rivaled Hollywood productions in their complexity and emotional manipulation. His church services operated like movie sets, complete with rehearsals, costume changes, and multiple takes to ensure maximum dramatic impact for television broadcasts. Muoka's signature miracles involved people vomiting bizarre objects, including live snakes, broken glass, and metallic items that had supposedly been placed in their bodies through witchcraft attacks. The visceral shock of watching people expel impossible objects from their stomachs created unforgettable television moments that convinced millions of viewers they were witnessing genuine spiritual warfare and supernatural deliverance. Former church members revealed the extensive rehearsal process behind these stomach-churning demonstrations. Ex-participants described how Muoka's staff coached them on concealing objects in their mouths, timing their regurgitation for maximum camera impact, and delivering convincing testimonies about their supposed spiritual oppression. The supernatural deliverances that built his ministry's reputation were exposed as carefully choreographed performances requiring weeks of preparation. Leaked footage from behind-the-scenes operations showed Muoka directing his miracle performances like a film director, calling for multiple takes when the dramatic impact wasn't sufficient, and adjusting lighting and camera angles to maximize the visual effect of his staged interventions. The spiritual warfare that terrified and amazed audiences was revealed as calculated theater designed to exploit cultural fears about witchcraft and supernatural attacks. The exposure of Muoka's scripted approach to miracle ministry revealed how modern religious fraud had evolved into sophisticated media production operations. His techniques demonstrated how traditional spiritual beliefs could be weaponized through professional quality staging to create content that appeared authentic while serving primarily as fundraising entertainment for vulnerable audiences seeking protection from spiritual threats. Case 15. Victor Kanyari. Victor Kanyari's empire of deception came crashing down in the most spectacular fashion possible when he was caught live on national television instructing his congregation on how to deliver fake testimonies about supernatural healing and financial miracles. The Salvation Healing Ministry pastor had built his reputation through dramatic healing crusades that promised instant solutions to Kenya's most desperate believers. Kanyari's ministry operated through carefully orchestrated campaigns where followers were instructed to send specific amounts of money as seeds of faith that would allegedly multiply through divine intervention. His television programs featured testimonies from people claiming miraculous debt cancellation, supernatural job opportunities, and instant healing from terminal illnesses after following his precise donation instructions. But investigative journalists from Kenya Television Network infiltrated Kanyari's operations and captured devastating footage of him coaching congregation members on fabricating their miracle testimonies. The hidden camera investigation revealed him instructing people on exactly what to say about their healing experiences, how much money they should claim to have received through divine intervention, and how to deliver their stories for maximum emotional impact. The live television expose broadcast Kanyari's own voice giving detailed instructions to his actors. "Remember to cry when you talk about your suffering before the miracle," he was recorded saying. "The more emotional you are, the more people will believe and send money." The footage showed him positioning camera operators for optimal angles and coaching participants on their facial expressions during testimony delivery. Most damaging was the revelation that Kanyari was using a fake phone number system to create the illusion of divine revelation during his broadcasts. Viewers who called his miracle line, thinking they were reaching him directly, were actually connected to staff members who gathered personal information, then fed it back to Kanyari through earpieces during live services, allowing him to appear psychically connected to callers he had never actually spoken with. The televised expose triggered immediate criminal investigations and led to Kanyari's arrest on fraud charges. His ministry collapsed overnight as followers realized they had been systematically deceived by elaborate theatrical productions disguised as spiritual services. The man who had promised supernatural intervention in thousands of lives became a symbol of everything wrong with modern religious exploitation. These 15 cases represent more than isolated incidents of religious fraud. They reveal a global epidemic of spiritual exploitation that generates billions of dollars annually while destroying countless lives. If you love true crime documentaries like this one, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, as we have more of such fascinating stories to come to you.